One a surprise live stream here. So can everyone see my screen and hear me okay? Thanks. I don't go live very often, so this is a special situation. Of course, everyone is looking forward to Nvidia's earnings results, which should be out any minute now, and I'll provide my live work through analysis of my initial reactions to Nvidia's earnings results. Of course, this could have huge implications for the markets overall. I want to get guidance from NVIDIA's management team to see what we're looking for in the announcement when it comes out. So here we have the guidance. Revenue, we're looking for 37.5 billion when the company announces its earnings results, with gross margins between 73 and 73.5%. These are the big items to look out for when the company announces the results. Of course, NVIDIA has exceeded these expectations in recent quarters. They beat by a couple of billion in the previous couple of quarters. So there could be some expectations that they are going to exceed these numbers. So if they don't at least get 37.5 billion in revenue, there could be a big sell-off in Nvidia shares following the announcement. My pleasure. I had a question about Grab stock, and yes, I will have a video on Grab stock coming soon. If you're a channel member at the investor tier, I've already done a discounted cash flow analysis on Grab stock and highlighted my intrinsic value per share for Grab stock. So for channel members, they can already see that, as well as my buy, hold, or sell recommendation for Grab stock. That's also already available for channel members at the investor tier. But I will have a video describing those calculations I made and the analysis I did for Grab stock for everyone else coming soon. And then I would say in the next week or so, I'll have a video on Grab stock. Of course, if you've been following my channel this year, you'll know I have Uber rated as my top stock to buy. So that can give you an idea of how I feel about that industry and that market. I will not be covering the live call. I'll probably keep sharing and staying live around until 1:30 or 1:45. The reason I won't be doing the conference call live is because I've got to go to campus. I'm teaching classes later today at the university, so I can't stay too long on the earnings call. This is my second live stream. Yeah, second. So I haven't done this very often. Thank you for joining and tuning in here. I appreciate having all of your attention. I know there's a lot you could be doing. I know there's several individuals that are probably live streaming. So I appreciate that you're joining me for this live stream for Nvidia's earnings. Of course, I've had Nvidia rated as one of my top stocks to buy all year here in 2025. I also had it rated as my top stock, one of my top stocks to buy in 2024. So I've been pretty bullish on Nvidia stock for a couple of years now. So the earnings releases for companies that are scheduled to release after the market close, sometimes they come out right after the market's closed at 1 p.m. Sometimes they don't come out until 1:30, but usually by 1:30 the company will have the earnings results out for us to evaluate. So I'm looking at an ETA of the earnings release in about 13 minutes from now. So another thing I'm going to be looking out for, as well as the current quarter revenue and gross profit margin, is the forecast for the next quarter, for the first quarter of 2026, fiscal year 2026 for Nvidia. And I'll look to what they guide in terms of revenue and gross margin. In the fiscal year 2025 Q1, they reported revenue of 26 billion and gross margins of 78.4%. Those are tough comparisons. The year-over-year growth rate was 262% in that quarter, with the margins expanding by 138 basis points, or I should say 13.8 percentage points from the same time last year. So big improvements they made in the same quarter last year. I'm curious to see what they guide for those results when those results come out. I mentioned already about Uber. It's rated as my top stock. It's performed really well so far in 2025. Uber has, and I think there's considerably more upside in Uber stock even from here. So Nvidia said that the fourth quarter 2025 earnings results, which are today scheduled February 26th, should be out 2 p.m. Pacific time. So these results should be out any minute now. I have talked about SM Supermicro computer stock a lot. I haven't talked about it since the company filed their financial reports on time yesterday, and I noticed that the stock price increased today because they were able to actually finally roll out their financial statements. So I'll be doing a video on super micro stock soon as well. All right, looks like you're saying earnings are out. Let me go check my screen here, refresh. I don't see them out just yet. Maybe the press release is out. Let's see. No, I didn't see earnings faked me out there. I went and refreshed the screen. I don't see Nvidia earnings out yet. I am seeing the after hours price action. Nvidia stock is up over, actually down now, down 1.6%. I'm looking on the Nvidia Investor Relations website. Let me look somewhere else to see if it updates better over there. No, November 20 results here. So yeah, I can show where I'm looking at. So I can get out of this screen. Actually, I can't get out of this one. Fourth quarter. Yeah, I'm still not seeing it. So you all are seeing Nvidia's results somewhere else. Oh, here we go. They are out now. I will go to them as we speak. All right, so let me see if I can switch from this screen share to the other one that just came out. Share my screen. Q4 25. All right, and we're on board here. So revenue came in at $39 billion, up 78% from the same quarter last year. Gross margins came in at 73%, which were down 3 percentage points from the same quarter last year. So the forecast was for 37.5 billion in revenue and margins between 73% and 73.5. We actually got revenue of 39.3 billion and gross margins on the lower end of what management was forecasting here. Stock price is flat in the aftermarket hours. So far, so good from Nvidia's results. Operating income jumped by 77% to $24 billion. That's a remarkable operating profit margin. If you divide the $24 billion in operating income with the $39 billion in revenue, you'll get the company's operating profit margin, which has been really strong. Interesting thing to note here is that the operating income went up by less than the revenue. Revenue increased by 78%. Operating income only increased by 77%. Typically, you see Nvidia operate with leverage here. What that means is that when revenue goes up, their profit goes up by much more than the revenue increases. That didn't happen here in this quarter. Some of that probably has to do with the lower margins compared to the same quarter last year, the lower gross margins from the same quarter last year. Of course, we expect to see the data center segment absolutely thriving, and we did see that here. Data center segment revenue up by 93% from the same quarter last year. This is where all of the revenue comes from the company selling into those data centers optimized for AI. I've done a lot of videos in the last 2 weeks on Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, all signaling that they're increasing their spending on capital expenditure. And they all said that most of that spending that they're investing in the capital expenditure is going towards data centers optimized for AI. NVIDIA getting a big share of that, and that segment experiencing a 93% increase. The gaming segment surprisingly down 11% year over year. This is now a less important segment for NVIDIA over the years as its AI business has exploded. The gaming segment hasn't been as important as before. All right, so let's go to some of the commentary I like to see from the company's management team. So they said revenue was up from the fourth quarter, 39 billion, up 78%. Data center revenue for fiscal 2025 for the full year was up 142% year over year. For the fourth quarter, it was up by 93%. The strong year and sequential growth was driven by demand for their accelerated computing platform for large language models, recommendation engines, and generative AI applications. This is where the vast majority of the growth is happening for NVIDIA, and this looks like it continued in the quarter. The Blackwell technology, this is what I wanted to hear about. They delivered $11 billion in Blackwell revenue for this quarter, and that's the fastest ramp up in the company's history. That's impressive because remember, before this year, NVIDIA had been on a 2 year upgrade cycle. So they upgraded their technology roughly every 2 years. Starting this year, they're going on that every 1 year upgrade cycle. And so to execute is so challenging to execute on a business that's growing so rapidly that also relies on physical products, manufacturing of physical products, and the logistics of all of that. It's a very high degree of difficulty business task, and Nvidia has been executing at roughly 100% accuracy for these last 2 to 3 years in an increasingly challenging environment. So that's one of the reasons why I've been so bullish on Nvidia stock, is not just the demand for its products, but also Nvidia's ability to meet that demand and continuously execute at roughly 100% execution. So they go on to say that Blackwell sales were led by large cloud service providers, which represented 50% of their revenue. And that's been the case, right? Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet have been a large percentage of the company's business, and it's no different so far. Blackwell sales were led by those large companies. All right. They went on to say that data center compute revenue at 32.6 billion was up 116%, driven by growth in not only Blackwell but also their H200 offering. By the way, can you all see this screen I'm sharing with you, the CFO commentary from Nvidia's investor relations? I see some comments saying that the screen is dark. Are you able to see the investor relations site? Okay, good. Just checking. Thanks for that feedback. All right, so let's continue here. They are experiencing growth in the H200 offering, networking. They're transitioning to new networks. All right, get the guidance. Wow, so they're guiding to $43 billion for the next quarter. That was more than I was expecting. I believe I did a video ask, talking about the guidance, how $42 billion or above would be a good number. But the gross margin is a lot lower than I was expecting. We were talking about gross margins of around 74%. The gross margin expectation for the upcoming quarter at barely above 70%, at 70.6%, and lower than what they delivered in the current quarter. Let's go back and see what the current margins were. So 73% in the current quarter, and they are forecasting for 70% in the upcoming quarter. So we're seeing a declining margin for Nvidia here, a declining gross margin, which can be a little bit concerning as they're ramping up this new technology. Um, to see this margin kind of decline like this, even though revenue is soaring, you usually see, especially with companies like Nvidia, they have great economies and scale in the business. The more revenue they generate, it usually leads to growing margins. And we certainly saw that for the last 2 years. We saw revenue increasing and all of the profit margins also increasing and expanding. Now we're seeing decelerating margin for 2 straight quarters. It's beginning a streak now, a streak that investors do not like to see, with the gross profit margin declining instead of expanding as margins increase. I'm I'm sure the company's management team is going to get asked about this during the earnings call, and this is something that I'm going to be paying close attention to on the earnings call. Is this some sort of pricing pressure now for NVIDIA, or is this just mainly a manufacturing issue in ramping up the new technology? Or is this now some of the buyers of NVIDIA's technology telling NVIDIA, look, if you don't give us better prices, we might not want to buy as much anymore? So I want to hear what side of the equation is causing the margins to go down, the manufacturing side of the equation or the demand side of the equation. And as a preference, I would prefer this be an issue of the manufacturing side of the equation. What I would like to hear from NVIDIA's management team is, our margins are lower because we haven't ramped up the manufacturing, or we haven't optimize the manufacturing of our Blackwell technology just yet. And in the back half of the year, in the last 2 quarters of the year, this will improve. And that's what I would prefer to hear, rather than NVIDIA saying, look, our customers are starting to exercise some negotiating power against us, and we had to give them better prices so that they would maintain their purchases with us. So let me check on the price now. Looks to be flat, down 1%. And that's surprising. I would have said there would be a lot more volatility in Nvidia's share price one way or the other, up or down. Surprised to see that it's down 1.2% on this news. So my initial reaction to these results are the revenue numbers are better than I expected. The margin numbers, especially the gross margin forecast for the next quarter, is lower than I was expecting. Um, the customer concentration still at 50% is also surprising to me, that those large buyers of Nvidia's technology is still makes up 50% of its overall revenue. I would like to see that broaden out more. The customer base for Nvidia, I would like to see that broadening out, because when you have relatively few buyers making up a large percentage of your total revenue, those buyers can exercise negotiating power against you, versus the other way around, where if you're broad based, then one customer cannot really exercise that much negotiating power in terms of prices, because you can just tell them, if you don't like our prices, you can go look somewhere else for your business. We have many other customers that we can go to. And so right now it's okay, because Nvidia has said, and this is another thing I'll be looking for in the earnings call. Nvidia has said that they're sold out for the first 3 quarters of this year. And so this customer concentration is not really a problem right now, but it could become a problem, let's say 4 quarters from now, when Nvidia is no longer sold out and they have more supply available. And now these customers come back to Nvidia and say, look, if you don't lower our price, maybe we'll do something else, look for other options. And they do have other options, even though Nvidia is absolutely the best in this category. They're unparalleled. I would say the competition is at least 2 steps behind, 2 big steps behind, and that would be AMD. But I would say Nvidia's competition is not just in against the second place player, it's more so against lower quality offerings. um, Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet investing more in their in-house chips and finding more use cases for the in-house chips rather than going to Nvidia. So that's just something to look ahead, like 4 quarters ahead, not something right now. And as a long-term investor, I like to look ahead at least 4 quarters, 2 years, 3 years, what the business looks like longer term. I saw a comment saying that it's hard to justify the valuation with this kind of guidance. My initial reaction is that I would disagree with that. I would say this guidance does not take away from the valuation justification. I don't think Nvidia stock is expensive. It's trading at a forward price to earnings, and I'm going to double check again here the forward price to earnings ratio for Nvidia. And it's trading at a forward price to earnings of 23, just 23 for Nvidia. And so, I mean, that's cheaper than Walmart stock. That's cheaper than Amazon. It's man, only a fraction of the price of companies like Tesla. So I think this valuation at a forward PE of where Nvidia is at is still an attractive valuation. Andre asks, how can a $3 trillion valuation be sustained? Well, it can be sustained by profits. The company's profits and cash flow justify the valuation. You look at the profits the company generated in the current quarter, operating income of $24 billion on revenue of 39 billion, and that's operating income increase of 77% year over year operating income increase. Look at all the other companies trading in this multi-trillion-dollar valuations. They're not growing anywhere near this level. Apple's not growing at this level. Microsoft is not growing at this level. Meta Platforms is not growing at this level. Tesla, I think, is going backwards. Um, Amazon is not growing at this level. So Nvidia is the only one of these multi-trillion-dollar valuation companies that's growing revenue and operating income and cash flow at these levels that are, I think just off the top of my head here at, more than twice the rate of increase of these other companies. And then to make the case more compelling for Nvidia stock, Nvidia's profit margins are the best in class, especially of those large tech companies. But Nvidia's profit margins are among the highest of any company I'm following. Let me calculate quickly on my phone this operating profit margin here. What I'm going to do is here take the $24 billion divided by the 39.3 billion in revenue. That's an operating profit margin of 60%. 60% operating profit margin, I believe, would be second place of, and I cover over 150, 175 companies. Nvidia's operating profit margin of 60% would be better than all of those companies except one. And bonus points in the chat if you know what company that one company is that generates better operating margins than Nvidia. I'll give you a hint. It was rated as my top dividend stock to buy in 2024. Wes White gets it. Visa, you're absolutely right. Visa is the only company that has a better operating profit margin among the 170 or so companies that I'm following that has a better operating profit margin than Nvidia. I'm seeing a lot of you getting it right. You all are excellent here. Yeah, Visa is the only company, and Visa's growth rate is less than double digits. So you have a company here in Nvidia that's growing revenue year over year 78% with operating margins north of 60%. This level of performance is truly unprecedented. You don't see this kind of performance. It's so difficult. And of course, that's why we're looking so far ahead with Nvidia stock. It's right now, they're absolutely excellent, right? And they're probably going to be excellent for the next 3 quarters at least because they're saying they're sold out. So that's why we're looking ahead at the next, 2 years, 3, 4 years ahead because they're doing so well right now that we're looking 2, 3, 4 years ahead. And also, the reason why we feel more comfortable about 2025 for NVIDIA is because the big buyers of the company's product, the cohort of buyers that make up 50% of their revenue, and that includes uh, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, they've all indicated big increases in capital expenditures this year. Alphabet said they're going to spend 75 billion in capex this year. That's up from 50 billion last year. Amazon said they're going to spend 106 billion dollars in capex this year. That's up from 75 billion last year. And Microsoft said they're going to spend 80 billion dollars this year compared to 50 billion dollars last year. So those are big increases in capital expenditure budgets from Nvidia's biggest customers, and so you can reasonably assume that Nvidia's revenue is going to be strong for the rest of this year. And so the question marks become, what does the business look like next year in calendar year 2026? That's what we want to know more about. And that's what the earnings call, that's what a lot of investors, including myself, will be paying attention to in the earnings call. So Nvidia stock now down less than 0.5% based on these results. Limited volatility in the share price. But I think after the earnings call might create more volatility in the share price. Also, just a reminder for everyone, if you're not already a channel members get access to member-only videos and early access videos and priority responses to comments in my comment section. And then if you're a channel member at the investor tier, you get access to my spreadsheets, which include my discounted cash flow valuation models. I do have a discounted cash flow valuation model for Nvidia that I will be updating tomorrow with incorporating this new information from today. And you also get my recommendations for buy, hold, or sell ratings on the 170 or 75 so stocks that I'm following. And I update that every day, Monday through Friday during trading days. I upgrade that frequently. Rashid makes a good point there. What did Jensen Huang say about DeepSeek? I didn't see anything in this commentary yet, but this is a CFO commentary. I will be looking at the earnings call to see what Jensen Huang said about DeepSeek. But if you saw this morning, I published a video from a Nebius Group. It's an AI company, and Nebius Group said that in January, they saw a surge in demand for NVIDIA GPUs after the DeepSeek developments because the NVIDIA GPUs were the ones that were best used for DeepSeek. So there was a bit of evidence that NVIDIA could benefit from the developments at DeepSeek, but it was, Nebius Group is a relatively small company. It's still generating, revenue in the hundreds of millions, and so it's not a very big company. But the initial little hint of data we got was that there was an increase in demand for NVIDIA's GPUs in late January after the developments of DeepSeek, and it created greater demand. But that's a question that almost certainly NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang will have to answer in the earnings call that should be starting in a few minutes. All right, I've got to get going to campus. I've got a class. I've got several classes to teach today. I just want to thank everyone again for tuning in to this live stream. I don't do live streams often. I might do them more based on I saw a lot of people here, a lot more than I thought. So I'm grateful that you all chose to join me in this earnings review, earnings analysis. I will have a recording of this earnings analysis coming out shortly. So if you want to watch this again, uh, please do so. Again, let me remind you, if you're not already a channel member, join at the investor tier to get access to the spreadsheets that have all of my buy, hold, or sell recommendations and my discounted cash flow valuations, which include the discounted cash flow for NVIDIA and many other AI stocks in the market. Thank you again, and I'll see you all again soon.